Today's video I'll be talking about how Wmma needs to stop, and Wmma co-main or main events of pay-per-views or main events of fight nights need to stop now. We've got Blanchfield versus Barber upcoming in 2 weeks time on June the 1st and they're the main event when you've got Gamrot, Ludovic Klein, who, fair enough, Ludovic Klein isn't that big of a name, but Gamrot is bigger than both of them and will bring in more eyes to a fight night than both of them. It makes no sense. But something else is everyone was saying the Natalia Silva Alexander Grasso fight was decent. It wasn't. It was atrocious. It was useless Zalal 2.0. She was running away the whole fight. Yes, she was outstriking her. Yes, she was landing shots, but that just showed that the women's cage, when they're fighting, needs to be smaller. They need to have a smaller cage. They have in other organizations, they have cages that change sizes so that they can have different size cages at the same event. They need to have this in the UFC so you can make the cage smaller for the woman so that they actually fight each other. Just look. All she was doing was kicking, doing the little shaking her ass, moving around. That's all she was doing the whole fight. And yes, she was landing more strikes. And yes, it's Grasso's fault that she wasn't moving side to side well enough and was just moving forwards and backwards and couldn't cut off the cage well enough. Yes, that was her fault. But also, just looking at them in there was so much space. They do not need this space. They need a smaller cage when they fight. This means we will see more KOs. We will see entertaining fights in the women's divisions, so we don't have to get rid of them. These fighters are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars every time they fight. Not all of them, obviously, not all of them. But Shevchenko's getting paid probably $1 million fight at least. Ferrorot's probably getting paid a couple hundred to show, a couple hundred to win. And the performances they are putting on are atrocious. Grasso's a millionaire. And you look at her performances. You look at the Shevchenko-Ferrot fight. She just tried to hold her against the fence. When she got... The first round was actually quite entertaining. Shevchenko was popping the jab, landing some right hands. There was a massive protrusion at the end on Ferrot's head. But there was too much space. And why is Mark Goddard not stop her from holding her against the cage when he literally did in previous fights earlier on that card? It makes no sense. Why are you letting the women do it and not, why are you letting the men do it and not the women? No, why are you letting the women do it and not the men? Why are you separating? You need the same rules for both. And it's damage-based scoring, so we should have separated them. This is not what we need in the UFC. The UFC is getting worse and worse. And a big part of that is the women's divisions, because they build no excitement. They build no hype. The most hype fight recently is Kayla Harrison versus anyone. Because Kayla Harrison will bring the hype. She chats shit and she looks like the Hulk, so it just brings in eyes. But we do not need these shit main events of pay-per-views of women's fights. We call them piss breaks. The fact that we call them piss breaks is enough to tell that the quality is not there. Everyone knows if you had Wmma in the UFC as its own thing, it would fail. The only reason they get paid these big wages, especially at the top, not the bottom, they don't get paid that much, but some of these ranked women's fighters are getting paid a couple $100,000, like 100,000, 200,000 every fight to show, and then more to win. And they're putting on performances like this. Where you need to have you need to have a smaller cage. A smaller cage will help fix some of these issues. Obviously not all of them. You need to talk to the refs. Make sure the refs knows to separate, when to separate, when not to separate, so you don't have holding against the fence for long periods of time to make the fight boring. That is stalling. It is stalling, and it's a massive problem now in the men's divisions as well. But they KO people still. There's still TKOs and KOs. There has not been a KO or a TKO in a women's title fight in so long. They bring no hype. They bring no excitement. There is no point them being there except to pander for the male audience, which is such a small percentage of the audience. It does not make sense. But you do have some exciting finishes, like on that same card, Jasmine Chasuda Vicious got a sub in the second or first round. I can't really remember what. But there are some exciting finishes, but the UFC has been letting WMMA's MMA just been letting it get worse and worse and worse these last couple of years, and they have done nothing to make it better. They need to implement things to make it better. They need to be telling these women to start beefing, to bring in more excitement, to bring in hype for these matchups. There is no hype. Who cares about Blanchfield Barber? Who cares? And there is no excitement because you know it's going to be a boring snooze fest and nothing's going to happen. So there is no, oh, maybe something could happen, because it never does. So the UFC need to be implementing changes like a smaller cage. You can have that. There are retractable cages that will expand and retract according to your needs during the event, which you could have for women's fights so they're closer to each other, so they don't have more space, so they can't run around as much, so they're forced to actually fight each other more. Why not? There is no reason not to do it. But the UFC has been putting out the bare minimum of everything, and the men's divisions are barely holding on, but the women's divisions have not been holding on at all for years, and it has been abysmal. The fact that we pay for this is shocking. We pay for this. I pay for Fight Pass, and one of my fight nights a year is a Blanchfield Barber. How is that fair? How is that fair? I pay $10 a month, $9.99 a month, and there's 2 to 3 fight nights, 2 usually a month, which 2 a month. I'm paying $5 for this shit card. It is disgraceful and it needs to stop, but let me know what you think. Is the smaller cage a good idea? What would you implement to make WMMA better? Or would you just get rid of it in a bit?